championships. That's what poker players live for. The dream, the national championship in Las Vegas. Tonight, it's the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship. In Atlantic City, the style of play may be different, the accents may be different, and the poker is anything but ordinary. Pros, amateurs, and everyone in between will compete for a shot at $1 million and a gold bracelet. That journey begins right now. Welcome to Harrah's Atlantic City for final table coverage of the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship. One of the premier properties by the ocean, playing host to a tough Final 9. Hello everyone, Ali Nejad along with professional poker player Antonio Esfandiari for the first of 5 consecutive weeks of poker. Some big names navigated rough waters to reach the final table. Ex-derivatives trader Andy Frankenberger, the attorney out of Philadelphia, Todd Terry, professional poker player and World Series of Poker bracelet winner Chris Bell, Micah Raskin, who sings in a rock band in his spare time, and Chris Klodnicki, who incredibly won this event last year. 136 players ponied up $10K a man, and these are the final 9. Chris Klodnicki on top with $759,000. Chris Bell definitely one to watch with $706,000 in second place. The short stacks belong to Andy Frankenberger and Seth Fisher. Nick Mitchell in the black hoodie you see there on the button. Todd Terry in the small blind. Andy Frankenberger in the big. Those blinds are 3 and 6,000. The ante is 1,000. Jason Burt under the gun folds. Klodnicki does the same.
Time to play some poker.
Pocket 7s. You get the feeling Seth Fisher's going to play some poker.
Chris.
Makes it 15,000 to go.
He opens for exactly 2.5x the big blind, which is pretty standard. And a lot of times, the first person to open for a raise at a final table kind of sets the tone as to how much the open is going to be throughout the final table.
Ketan Pandya with King-Queen makes the call.
And I like this. That's the first hand. He's got King-Queen. He has position. Call, see a flop.
Todd Terry lays down in the small blind. Over to Andy Frankenberger. 10-4, over and out. Heads up. Ketan with position. Ace high flop. Ketan's got the Broadway draw. 2-7 still the best hand for Seth.
Not the best flop, but he's going to lead out and continuation bet most of the time here, I think. And he does for 22,000, which is about 10% of his stack.
Gutsy raise from Ketan to 52,000.
No, I should have more chips.
I like this raise by Pandya. He sensed that Fisher didn't connect and was doing a standard continuation bet. He went for it.
Looking like a pro. He says that this final table is his greatest poker accomplishment.
I think that's the first time I've seen you flat a raise, actually.
Actually, almost missed the 5 p.m. deadline for the event. He ran out of gas on his way into Atlantic City. How do you like that? True poker DJ.
And he still made it.
Still made it.
Strong.
He had about 10 minutes to spare when he bought in.
Wow, that's the third hand.
I told you I'm folding my way to third place.
Wow.
Big slick for Seth. He makes it 15,000. Ace Jack for Chris Bell, who lays down.
This is a great spot for Fisher to pick up Ace King. He just lost the pot. He looks a little beaten.
Call.
And he's got the same company he had last time so far. 10-9 suited for Ketan.
Pandya again, 10-9 suited with position. Pretty standard call.
Folded around to Jason Burt. He wants no part of things with King 7. And it's round 2 between these gentlemen.
So what? So good luck again, guys.
7-10-5 with a couple of hearts.
Not the best flop for Fisher.
He checks it.
Seems as if perhaps he got a little gun shy on this one. Last time he bet into Pandya, he got raised. This time he might just give up the pot and check fold, or quite possibly go for the check raise all in.
How about the check call?
You know, I'm not a big fan of this play. Just calling out of position with the ace high is never a winning play.
But turning the king is.
Turning the king is. You know, I guess if you can see the future, it's never wrong.
Both players check the turn, and now queen on the end. There's the value bet, 42,000 from Fisher.
That's 42,000.
He has to bet here. He knows he has the best hand, more than likely has the best hand, and he has to get value.
Caton's father taking in the action from the rail, and a good laydown by Pandya. Tough to imagine what a pair of tens is going to beat on that board.
Mazel tov.
Good time.
We're even now. Nice bluff.
Thank you.
1-1.
Seth Fisher and Caton Pandya establish an early rivalry at this regional championship. There are 4 of these 10K events, culminating in the national championship in Las Vegas. All 9 final tablists get a free seat in that event and a shot at the bracelet and the $1 million prize pool. Plenty of overlay in these events. I get the feeling if you weren't here with me, buddy, you'd be out there.
I actually would. Anytime there's overlay in a tournament, us as professionals definitely want to play. Unfortunately, I had to be elsewhere, in the booth with you.
Unfortunately, huh? Pocket sevens for Micah Raskin, who makes it 18,000. Why change the pre-flop trend from 15 to 18?
It's really personal preference. He has a medium pocket pair, and he wants to just win the blinds. He doesn't want to have somebody call behind him and have to play a flop. There's a good chance that some overcards could come.
Somebody like Andy Frankenberger, who just laid down king-queen.
He did muck the king-queen. I think that was probably a good laydown by Andy in the long run, because someone that opens in first position is usually a strong hand.
Ace-queen for the chip leader, Chris Klodnicki in the green shirt.
Klodnicki not looking like he wants to fold here.
But not looking like he wants to raise either.
I like calling here. His hand is very disguised. Again, the original raiser was in the first position, so you always have to take that into consideration. He's got the button. He's got chips. Why not take a flop?
And he's got company in the form of Chris Bell, who defends his big blind with queen 10 offsuit. Flop is 6 ace jack rainbow.
This is a great flop for Klodnicki. He's flopped top pair with a queen kicker.
Chris Bell's got the Broadway draw. It's been checked around to Klodnicki, who bets 24,000.
A lot of times a good player here with position on the button would take a stab at that flop, hoping that his 2 other opponents missed. And so he bets, but he actually happens to have top pair queen kicker. Chris Bell, thinking that Klodnicki could have nothing and is stabbing at the pot, is calling here, representing a pair of some sort.
Micah Raskin lays down. Turn puts an 8 out there. Chris Bell now with a 2-way straight draw. He checks a second time. Klodnicki showing no signs of slowing down, and he's going to bet.
Klodnicki's very confident about his hand. Chris Bell just called. He checked the turn.
Chris is going to call again, this time 64,000.
I'm not a huge fan of this play at this point, because what is he going to do if he misses the river?
Which he just did.
The jack on the river is actually a phenomenal card for him. He could very well represent that he was calling him down with second pair, and is quite possibly going to lead into him here. He has no other options if he wants to win the hand. He has to bet.
164,000.
That's exactly what he's done, 164,000. Now it's on Chris Klodnicki to decide whether or not he's going to give Chris Bell credit for trips or perhaps a backdoor flush. And he is. Chris Bell bluffs his way to a 406,000 chip pot.
That was a great river for him.
You want to put me on tilt? Go ahead.
Will it put you on tail?
Yeah, it will.
Wait, you gotta show everyone. You gotta show everyone if you show one.
He's got to show everybody now. Flip him up.
You gotta show everyone.
Flip it, flip it.
I'm not going to do that any more today. No more bluffing for me, boys.
That might have been good.
It's on.
It's just like poker. At first you play, and maybe you're not so good. So you practice, and then you practice some more. And you know what? Eventually you find your rhythm, your game, and you get better. And there you are, a poker player. Learn to play better poker for free at the world's largest online poker site, PokerStars.com, and find the PokerStar in you.
Tonight, the center of the poker world is Harrah's Atlantic City. The East Regional Championship final table underway, and so far, the players have come out firing. Usually a final table takes some time to warm up. That not the case here.
The boys are gambling.
Raise.
Todd Terry with ace-10 makes it 20,000 to go. Blinds have moved to 4 and 8,000 with a 1K ante. So this is still 2.5x. Ace-Jack for Andy Frankenberger.
This is a tough spot. The Razor Terry opened in the first hole. Frankenberger has ace-jack offsuit. There's a bunch of people behind him. I like this laydown. I'd probably lay down as well. You're not only worried about the original Razor, there's 7 guys left to act behind you.
Not impossible for one of them to wake up with a hand. Ace-9 laid down by Chris Bell. Over to Micah Raskin on the button. He pitches.
Call.
Caton will defend from the small blind with Jack-9 suited.
Not a big fan of this call. He's out of position. He has Jack high. I would either 3-bet or fold.
With 3-bet being the less desirable of those two options.
Yes, I think sometimes you just have to give it up.
Or just flop top pair on the all diamond board.
I guess I would take a different approach.
Or Caton choosing to check, and a very quick check behind by Todd Terry.
This is a surprising check. He raised pre-flop. It was checked to him on the flop. I think he should continuation bet here almost 100% of the time. When he does check behind, he's basically turning his hand face up. Unless he flopped the monster, he's basically saying, I have no pair.
Board paired on the turn. Both players checked again. Brick on the end, and Caton leads for 31,000. Terry calls the 31,000, and he'll take a look at 9s and 5s as the pot is slid over to Caton.
In that spot, there was a good chance that Pandya was bluffing, and so the ace-high call is not so bad. You know, once he checks behind, Pandya knows that he probably doesn't have anything, so he's taking a step. I don't mind the ace-high call.
In case anyone's wondering at home, let's take a look at what everyone is playing for. First place is worth over $350,000, more than 10 times what 9th place will bring. Top 3 is where you want to be in this payout structure, definitely top heavy. Not represented in the graphic, the World Series of Poker circuit ring. Sharp looking piece of hardware.
2 days ago?
You know a thing or two about World Series hardware.
Yeah.
I happen to have a bracelet. One many years ago.
Many moons.
Many moons ago.
Neither have we. We just want to, like... Sure you haven't. You never stop to think about it for a minute. I don't really do much thinking.
Whoa!
Just click
Grab your shades. It looks like Chris Klodnicki
do a lot of thinking.
knows what to do with a garage full of old tennis balls.
That thing is neon. Looks like a glow-in-the-dark hoodie.
I better just go with once until I figure out what you're talking about.
Ace-6 suited for Chris Bell. Folded around to him on the button. It's pretty standard, 22,000. He opens the pot for a raise. King-10 off for Micah.
In a way, this is a tough spot to be in for Raskin. He has King-10 offsuit. The button has raised, and a lot of times here with the blinds and the antes, the button's going to come in for a raise. For him to just call out of position is not a play I'm in favor of. I would 3-bet or fold.
3-betting would have given him control. Instead, it's 8-6 Jack with a couple of spades. And let me guess, he's going to check it. And that's what he does. Chris Bell with bottom pair is going to check behind.
You don't want to set yourself up for a check raise. I like the check behind. He's got a pair. He has position. Let's take a card off and see what happens on the turn. He could very well induce the bluff from Raskin.
He's got no clue where he's at right now. Raskin picks up the flush draw and leads out for 25.
This is a very standard call. Again, he has position. He has a pair. It's very difficult to make a pair.
Here comes the river. Ace is up for Chris Bell. Going to feel a little better about his hand at this point. Credit Micah. He shuts down.
Raskin gives up. He had the king of spades in his hand. He was hoping to maybe take it down on the turn, and if not, maybe a spade would come on the river. He's basically giving up the pot.
76,000 to call.
How much?
Well, wait a minute.
154.
Raskin with a check raise to 154.
He's repping the flush. He has a flush or he's bluffing. That's what Chris Bell is thinking.
This is just about a min raise. Chris is getting a great price to call.
It's an awkward raise. I mean,
Yeah, that'd be good if you got that.
if he had a flush, why wouldn't he raise more? Chris Bell is thinking, if he really has the flush, why is he only min raising?
Good call.
Chris makes the call.
I didn't like this raise by Raskin one bit. This is an amateur play. It looked really fishy. He's only repping the flush, and why would he raise so little?
You get the feeling Micah Raskin isn't going to hang that one up on his wall of fame.
Hello, beautiful. Oh, yeah.
No one to play with. So play online at partypoker.com. It's fun, it's easy, it's the world's largest poker room.
You folded?
Welcome back to Atlantic City, home to the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship.
On the East Coast, people are more laid back, and that kind of reflects in their tournament style. I mean, they're normally more passive, and in the West Coast, it's ram and jam, and fire.
The East Coast poker player, they don't like to fold very much.
I think the West Coast players are generally significantly better than the players out here on the East Coast. I think that's because Vegas and LA are such hot spots for poker, so I think there are just a lot more pros out there than there are out here.
You've played a lot on both coasts, partner. What are your thoughts?
I find that on both the East and the West Coast, you have great players, and you also have not so great players. It's about, even.
Feels like stud players are more prevalent on the East Coast.
Now,
than
that
the
may
West
be
Coast.
true. There are better stud players from the East Coast, but Hold'em players, you find great players from all over the place.
Back to the action. Micah Raskin with Queen Jack suited. Makes it 20,000 to go. His table image may be a little damaged after trying to run that unsuccessful river check raise through Chris Bell and getting caught.
Note that he is in early position, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't play this hand, because when I look at Queen Jack suited, I get a little excited personally myself.
Well, how about when you look at two aces?
I get a lot more excited.
Chris Klodnicki in the small blind.
And he's for sure going to re-raise here. I don't see him flatting in the small blind out of position.
Make it 60.
Not a fan of the slow play pre-flop there?
Definitely not a fan of the slow play. Raskin opened in early position. There's a chance he's going to be calling a re-raise. And Klodnicki doesn't want to put himself in a bad spot, so he's got to re-raise here.
Doesn't have to worry about losing his man, and indeed, Raskin showing no signs of a laydown. He'll call the extra 40.
People generally like to see a flop with that hand. They don't fold for a re-raise. Not taking into consideration how much trouble he can get in if it comes, just a queen or a jack high.
Speaking of trouble, look at that flop. Ace-6-10 with two hearts.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know he didn't do anything. None of the buttons here. Yeah, the buttons here.
Little confusion over where the button was. Top set checks. Royal flush draw checks.
Klodnicki's check is a bit surprising. I don't love it. I don't hate it. He did flop the absolute nuts, but I would be slightly nervous giving my opponent a free card with that board.
Queen of diamonds on the turn has given Raskin a pair to go with the royal flush draw. Klodnicki leads out for 100,000.
The checking days are over.
Raskin just calls the 100.
If he raises here, he's only getting called by a better hand. There's a chance that his queen is the best hand, and if his opponent has an ace, he's in big trouble.
Deuce of spades, about as safe a river card as you could ask for with Klodnicki's hand, and about as bad a river as you could want if you're Raskin. 337 in the middle.
Call.
Bet and snap call of 135,000.
At least think about the hand. He was just frustrated. He had second pair, and he just wanted to see his opponent's hand. He didn't even think about it.
What he really wanted to see was a king or a heart. That would have given him a winner.
Wow. How does he get dealt ace? Is that what you're saying?
So the top of the leaderboard flip-flops again. Chris Klodnicki with the narrowest first-place margin. Micah Raskin has taken a beating at this final table. He slips into the short stack spot. 3 other players right there with him, though. Expect to see some bust-outs soon enough with the blinds at 4 and 8,000. Antes at 1K.
I think you should.
4 players in that range of all-in or fold pre-flop. What's your cutoff?
10, 15, big blinds. It's going in pretty light.
The antes factor in, too. We hear people talk about M and how much it costs for an orbit, but you just play it straight big blinds?
Well, you always take the antes into consideration. You have to look at your stack and realize how much it's going to cost you per round and play accordingly. You can't win the tournament by folding.
Caton's opened this pot up with a raise to 20,000. He's got Jack 9 suited. Worked for him earlier. Ace Queen suited for Nick Mitchell. Flats him.
The Jack 9 open in the 2-hole is questionable. I think you're putting too much at risk with a Jack high out of position against a bunch of opponents that have yet to act on their hand.
Todd Terry lays down pocket 8s. How do you feel about Nick Mitchell's smooth call?
I don't mind this. Ace Queen suited. His hand is very disguised. There's still people left to act behind him. Anybody could wake up with a monster.
2 9s in the muck from Andy Frankenberger, who at this point has mucked King, Queen, Ace, Jack, and 2 9s to a pre-flop raise.
Given that Pandya has been pretty active and opening a lot of pots and seeing a lot of flops, and that he got flatted by Mitchell, I think the 9s and the 8s, given their chip stack, was a clear ship.
Apparently the 8s and the 9s disagree. They're both in the muck. Chris Bell called with 6-7 suited, making 3 players in this pot. The flop is 4 Queen 7 rainbow.
This is a great flop for Mitchell. He's flopped top pair, ace kicker. Chris Bell, unfortunately, has flopped a pair of 7s, and I think he's going to put some chips into the pot.
Caton didn't fire the continuation bet. Mitchell bets 38,000. And Bell calls.
Again, we know it's very difficult to flop a pair, and players in position always like to take a stab.
What is happening here? Pandya makes it 110,000, check raising 2 players in this spot.
This is a very strong raise. He's really not worried about Bell. No. Bell just called. He knows that Bell doesn't have a monster. He's thinking to himself, does Mitchell really have a hand here or not? If he doesn't, this is a genius play. What he doesn't know is that Mitchell has ace queen and he mucks.
Wow. Definitely didn't expect that.
I was not expecting that. It's very difficult to flop top pair ace kicker, and he just mucked it without even thinking about it.
I'm going to look like a genius or a massive idiot on TV on that hand.
Harrah's Atlantic City is an ideal destination to relax and take your mind off everyday life. Whether it's a quiet night in one of the newly renovated suites or a day at the pool, you will leave Atlantic City refreshed and invigorated. We're at Harrah's Atlantic City, just minutes from the famous boardwalk for the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship. Down the road for our final table, a shot at winning the national championship, a gold bracelet, and of course a share of that $1 million prize pool. Blinds have gone up to 5 and 10,000. Ante stays the same at 1,000.
So far, I'm very impressed with Pandya. He's shown a lot of heart and a lot of follow-through.
And a lot of out-of-the-box behavior at the poker table. Worked out well for him so far. 2 7s for Jason Burt. Haven't seen anything from him yet. He makes it 25,000. Rest assured, the other players at the table are aware that Jason Burt has been very inactive. Probably going to give him quite a bit of credit. He's got a very tight table image. Queen 10 suited for Micah Raskin, who moves all in for his remaining 133,000 total. Ace 5 suited for Caton.
Have a feeling this hand is going in the muck.
Call. Indeed.
And pocket 7s is an instant call.
2 overs against a pair. As you can see, it's just about a coin flip.
Raskin gambling here. He was pretty sure he was going to get called.
You know, it was like the one hand I've opened in a long, long time.
Sometimes you have to gamble in order to put yourself in a position to win.
2 7s, actually one of the better hands for Queen 10 suited to be up against in this situation. Micah flops the gut shot straight draw to go with his 2 overcards and turns the nut straight. Jason Burt now drawing dead will put an inconsequential river card up on the board.
Straight.
Just the nuts.
Very proud of his straight. It's always nice to turn the nuts.
Micah fights off elimination and keeps himself alive. Just another evening at the office for Raskin.
Well, my father taught me cards, and we used to play gin rummy and stuff like that. So I run a business, and I play on the professional poker tour. When I make a final table, I just try to think of it as another day at work, that it's a one-table sit-and-go. I'm a fantastic sit-and-go player, so I just pretend it's a 9 or 10 person sit-and-go and just play it like that. I love the mental competition and the psychological warfare of it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
It's always nice to see a guy who loves the game.
I think he loves the game.
Probably doesn't love that he's lost a few chips back since his double up.
He loves the game.
Not to be confused with the singular loves the game.
Yes, a double love. Much stronger love.
Some napkins hit the muck. And now it's pocket 10s for Micah. You think he loves this hand or loves this hand?
I think this is a love hand. Singular.
Micah's only got about 160,000. Raises to 25.
I like this. If he goes all in, there's a good chance that a pair of 7s or a pair of 8s might muck. Whereas if he opens for 25,000, he leaves the door open for someone to potentially come over the top of him. He wants to get all of his chips in the middle.
Jason Burt might be feeling the same way with ace-king.
What'd you start with?
127.
Are you sure about that?
That's what he's got, probably.
Right now, or?
No, I started with 127.
No.
Micah's actually got more than that.
120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 111 behind.
I'll put you all in then.
I call.
131 behind.
All in.
Jason puts Micah all in. He snap calls, and it's a classic race.
131 behind. I'm not that mad.
I got this one.
I like that confidence.
This is a more different flip.
Push him, my main. Push him, my main.
What do you fold?
Say fold, that's in.
326,000 chip pot. Here's the flop. It's a good one for 2 10s.
This is a great flop for Raskin. He has the pair of 10s. He also picked up a straight draw just in case his opponent draws out on the turn.
Which he does not. Raskin only needs to avoid an ace or a king. And he does.
Nice hand, Mike.
Thank you.
Second double up so far in this final table. But the first fist bump.
Clearly the first fist pump we've seen all night.
Raskin's 10s hold up, and his Atlantic City office stays open for now. Welcome back to Harrah's Atlantic City. Still 9-handed here at this East Regional final table. Let's get a look at the leaderboard where the two Chris's continue to run 1 and 2. Keaton Pandya, who has been the most aggressive player, is in third. 6 players with 30 big blinds or less. Either we'll see some serious consolidation or else Bell or Klodnicki will run away with it. Action on Keaton Pandya. 2 queens.
Pretty good starting hand.
You don't say.
You don't say. Pandya more likely to get action with his queens than anyone else, having been the most active player.
King-Jack offsuit from Nick Mitchell. He'll lay it down. Over to Todd Terry. 4 bubbles.
All in. All in.
He's all in for 236,000.
He mucked this exact hand earlier. Slightly different situation. The blinds are now 6 and 12,000. He's got to get it all in.
I call.
Caton makes the easy call, and he'll be pleased to be up against pocket 8s.
Black queen for
Todd Terry standing up.
Appears as if he's packing up.
Can't blame him. He's in pretty bad shape. 4-1 dog heading to the flop, and he makes a set.
That's got to hurt for Pandya.
Be seated. Not over yet. Caden can hit a 9 or a queen to make a straight or a set. King isn't going to do it, however. And Todd Terry enjoying a little bit of luck.
That's just brutal. You're at the final table. There's so much at stake. You have the overpair and the underpair comes through. It does hurt.
Caden and family disappointed with that outcome, as is the rest of the table, no doubt.
Of course, everyone's rooting for someone to get out, move up the pay structure, and finish higher.
Still 9-handed. Everyone's sticking around.
Nobody seems to want to leave.
It's not that the stacks aren't short. There's quite a few people who are in that sub-30 blind range, as we pointed out.
It's amazing that with this many short stacks, with the amount of chips they have relative to the blinds, that they're still 9-handed.
Yeah. Ace-9 offsuit for Seth Fisher. He'll play for $25,000. Artwork for Raskin. Makes the call.
Fisher in mid position with the ace-9 offsuit. He's pretty low. He's trying to pick up the blinds and the antes, get something going. I don't mind it.
He'll be heads up. Makes top pair. And Fisher checks.
I think he's trying to induce a bluff on Raskin's part. I'm quite certain that he believes his hand is the best hand, and he doesn't want to take Raskin off a potential bluff.
But he's just calling the $25,000 bet from Raskin.
He doesn't want to raise him out. Potentially, maybe Raskin wants to follow through on the turn. And maybe Raskin does have an ace with a bigger kicker, or possibly a set of 8s or 6s. He has top pair with a 9 kicker. I mean, sometimes you have to play that carefully.
Raskin's picked up a Broadway draw on the turn. Seth checks a second time. And Micah has bet $85,000. Fisher again calls.
Once he puts the $85,000 in on the turn, he's committing himself to the pot. I don't see a check fold on the river here.
I'm all in.
Micah makes queens on the end and moves all in at a turn.
As long as you check, right? Tell him what the rule is. That's what he wants. He did like that. So tell him what the rule is.
Yeah, it probably requires ruling.
Tournament director John Arthur.
If the action doesn't change in front of him and he assumed he was the act, he assumed you checked, that would be binding.
Explaining that Micah Raskin's bet is binding.
I assumed he checked.
You think?
Raskin, by betting out of turn, has given Fisher the free roll. As long as Fisher checks, Raskin's bet for all-in is binding.
I'm all in.
Fisher does check. Raskin is all in.
This is a tough spot for Fisher. Raskin bet the flop. He bet the turn.
This is the third barrel. And Seth lays down.
Wow. He folded the best hand.
Raskin can barely contain himself, popping up. Feeling good about that pot.
Let me see that muscle.
Stop.
Let me see that muscle.
Where's my rail?
That's the TV, man.
It's nice having one fan, isn't it?
Some tilting comments there from Fisher.
If he's mad now, wait till he finds out what Micah had. No one willing to give an inch here at Harrah's. We started 9-handed, and we're still 9-handed. Micah Raskin has been the story thus far, both with his play and his antics. He left Seth Fisher irritated after betting out of turn just before the break and bluffing Seth off of a pair of aces. Blinds at 8 and 16,000. Ante at 2K. Action folded all the way around to Andy Frankenberger in the cutoff. Andy's been playing very tight. 10-3 won't garner any criticism, though. Jason Burt on the button with a couple of jacks. This will be easier than picking up a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Caltech. which Jason says is the greatest accomplishment of his life.
It's a great spot to pick up a couple of jacks. On the button, very disguised. Almost all good poker players will come in for a raise here with a wide range of hands.
35,000 is the number. Klodnicki lays down in the small. Ace-8 suited for Fisher in the big, and he is short-stacked.
Fisher is probably going to ship here.
Can't imagine him just calling.
All-in.
All-in call.
And indeed, there's the all-in, and there's the call.
Jason has jacks, spade, heart.
Pull up.
We have ace-8 of clubs.
Little better than a 2-to-1 favorite is Jason Burt with his pocket jacks.
Can't blame Fisher for getting in with the worst of it. The hand just plays itself.
King high board, all hearts. Not looking good for ace-8. Deuce of clubs on the turn. Seth Fisher drawing to 2 8s and 2 aces. Anything else, and he's going to be the first player eliminated. 3 of diamonds seals his fate. He'll leave to a round of applause and some handshakes.
The turning point for Fisher was laying down the best hand on the river against Raskin.
Yeah, that should have been a big pot heading Seth's way.
Excellent. Well done, sir.
But instead, Micah pulled off the bluff, and Seth is being shown the exit. Let's get a look at the leaderboard. Still the tale of 2 Chris's, but Micah Raskin is making a charge, sitting in 3rd place. Before Seth Fisher took off, we asked him about the pivotal hand.
It was such a weird situation. Like, he acted out of turn on the river.
I'm all in.
I mean, he's a maniac, so I have no idea what he has. It was borderline angle shooting, borderline bad play, but I just can't see not being beat there most of the time, and it was for all my chips, so what are you going to do?
Well, if you're Seth Fisher, you're going to go home with $32,000.
Not a bad payday.
Not at all. Clearly had his mind on a bigger figure, though, when he took his seat.
We always do.
King Queen for Nick Mitchell. He's going to ship his 170 into the middle.
All in.
Jack 9 suited for Andy Frankenberger. We know what Caton would do with that hand.
Absolutely. And with the blinds at 8 and 16,000, given that he only has 170,000, I like the ship.
2 10s for Jason Burt. Small downgrade from Jacks, but I think he'll live with it.
170 is 1/3 of his stack. He's either going to call or ship it all in.
I'm all in. All in.
And all in it goes, 457 total.
I like the all-in. This puts him in a more likely situation to be heads up against his opponent, and when you have 2 10s, you'd rather be heads up than play a multi-way pot.
Good luck.
Indeed, 2 10s will be heads up after a round of folds. King in the window, all spade flop.
That's a sweat.
Jason gets out-flopped, but he does have the flush draw.
It's going to be like 8 of clubs on the turn, too.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
1 out goes away. That's the Queen of Spades.
Oh, not even.
That card would give Nick Mitchell a full house.
Yeah.
Blank deuce on the end. And the man who's already final tabled a World Series of Poker event
170
is looking to improve upon his 5th place finish there after avoiding elimination at the hands of Jason Burt.
One of these days.
I don't know about that, though. Pretty good at flipping.
I was until this table.
For Jason, it's been a rough night.
I'll put you all in then.
I call.
I'm all in. One of these days.
We play because poker's not a scratch-off ticket, a half-court jumper, or a knock on wood. It's no game of luck, poker. It's a game of patience and well-timed aggression. We know when we play, a little luck helps. But luck can't explain why final tables have so many familiar faces. We play at FullTiltPoker.com.
Welcome back to the World Series of Poker National Championship presented by AMP Energy. We're inside Harrah's Atlantic City for the East Regional. Ali Nejad and Antonio Esfandiari, along with 8 players left in the hunt for the circuit ring. Ace-Jack offsuit for Nick Mitchell, who just picked up a double-up before the break. His King-Queen beating Jason Burt's pocket 10s. And he'll put those chips to use here, raising to 34,000.
He is in the one hole. Most people in the one hole play a little more snug, so the other opponents, seeing that Mitchell opened in the one hole, kind of sends off a red flag that perhaps he could have a real hand.
King 10 suited for Jason Burt. He'll lay down. And another ace-jack. This one for Chris Klodnicki. He lays down.
And that's what happens when you open early position. People give you more credit than you deserve.
Micah Raskin has 10 deuce suited.
He's got the look.
Certainly does. If anyone at this table can make this call or a raise, who knows? It's Micah Raskin, perhaps playing his rush. He's up to over $1 million in chips.
$1 million, $2 million, $500,000. I think this is a terrible call. He's out of position with a 10 high. Why?
Because you're going to flop top and bottom pair. Come on.
If you can see the future, that answers my question.
Raskin leads right out for 50,000.
I don't mind this at all. A lot of times when you flop a hand, you want to just lead out. Your opponent might think that you're bluffing. Mitchell here could try to represent an overpair by putting in a big raise.
Instead, he just calls. Clearly Raskin with a volatile table image, not getting the credit of some of the other players. 3 of spades on the turn. Changes nothing for Nick Mitchell, who is now drawing dead.
Mitchell called on the flop hoping that he had the best hand to see what Raskin would do on the turn. Now Raskin comes firing again. I think that Mitchell is probably going to be done with his hand.
Or not. Nick slides 100,000 in there for the call.
I don't like it. What's he going to do on the river? Raskin seems to bet every street, and he's going to call him with ace high on the river.
A flush draw, really the only thing Mitchell could hope to beat, and now with a third heart on the end, he can't even beat that, but he has made top pair, top kicker.
This is a very bad card for Mitchell on the river. Now that Raskin has checked to him, I think that Mitchell's going to go for the value bet, and Raskin, I don't see a fold anywhere in his future.
All in.
Mitchell moves all in for 241, and Raskin snap calls. Surprise!
Wow.
Nick Mitchell looks shell-shocked.
Not a very happy Mitchell.
Again, there. You got it.
Most people would be elated to take home 40,000 and change, but you can't blame Nick Mitchell for not thinking about the silver lining right now. Let's look back at the AMP Energy hand of the day. Another unusual one involving Micah. His premature all-in caused quite a stir.
I'm all in.
This player's first hand. Okay.
Eventually, Seth checked. He moved all in.
I'm all in.
And Seth folded the best hand.
Stop.
It's nice having one fan, isn't it?
With a parting shot. Micah Raskin really hasn't looked back since that point in time. Doesn't even have time to rake in all the chips from his last pot before looking at his hand, which is ace-deuce offsuit.
45,000.
Folded around to him on the button. He makes it 45,000 to go.
He's getting after it.
That's the biggest pre-flop raise we've seen with the blinds at 8 and 16,000.
Yeah, and a lot of times this is pretty standard. You don't want to call when you have ace-deuce. You just kind of want your opponents to fold. You want to win the blinds and the antes.
Caton Panja drawing a line in the sand for 204,000.
I like this ship a lot. He knows that the range for Raskin on the button is very wide, and his ace-5 is probably the best hand.
Oh, wow.
And he was right.
Got one of those.
Micah flashes an ace, as does Caton. And that'll have Raskin feeling good about the laydown.
What did there, Mike?
That's it. That's it.
Caton's got the family excited. Picking up a small pot from Micah Raskin, but that's about the only thing that didn't go right for Micah, who has overtaken the two Chris's and is now the chip leader. Bottom half of the leaderboard has a lot of work left to do. All night, Micah Raskin was the center of attention, and with 7 players left, his stack dwarfs the rest. Is the World Series of Poker circuit ring fit for his finger? We'll find out if he can outlast the remaining 6 players. For Antonio Esfandiari, I'm Ali Nejad. We'll see you next time from the World Series of Poker National Championship. At this stacked final table in Atlantic City, bust-outs have been hard to come by. 9 started, and after just 2 eliminations, 7 are left. Someone must step up. Will it be Micah Raskin and his big stack? Can Andy Frankenberger continue his hot year? Or will a seasoned pro stake claim to first place prize money and the World Series of Poker circuit ring? 7 must become 1, and that starts now. Welcome to Harrah's Atlantic City for the conclusion of the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship final table. Ali Nejad along with bracelet winner Antonio Esfandiari. 7 players remain at a final table where no one is willing to give an inch. What do you expect?
Chris Klodnicki playing very solid, picked up aces, got some action earlier. Micah Raskin has taken the chip lead, very unconventional player. Who knows what's going to happen?
Don't count out Chris Bell either out of North Carolina. He's got plenty of felt time underneath his belt and still right there at the top of the chip counts along with Micah and Klodnicki. Plenty of brains in the field. Todd Terry in 4th, graduated magna cum laude in applied math from Harvard. Then, for good measure, magna cum laude from NYU Law School. Caton Pandya running 5th currently in chips. Rutgers graduate in engineering. Jason Burt, who folds the 10-9, graduated from Caltech. And Andy Frankenberger, who's got over $1 million in career tournament winnings, turned down Harvard to go to Duke. It's like academics week here in Atlantic City.
Pretty strong to turn down Harvard.
The computer hand, Queen 7 for Caton.
I'm all in.
He lays it down. Spidey senses must have been tingling because Todd Terry insta-ships behind him out of the small blind with ace-7 off for 212 total, and it's ace-9 for Frankenberger.
I like this ace-7, putting Frankenberger all in here.
Call. Despite the fact that it is a dominated hand now that Frankenberger has made the call.
Not the best spot for Terry.
But don't be results-oriented is the moral of the story.
Absolutely. I mean, he's in a small blind. Everybody folded. He's only got to get through one more hand. He's short-stacked. He's got to get it in.
Right play. Possibly wrong result. And so far, that seems to be the case. Ace-9 holding on the 10-high rainbow board. 3 outs twice for Todd Terry.
That's a terrible card for Terry.
The kicker will definitely play. Queen of clubs on the river. And Andy's fired up.
Frankenberger.
Nice.
He looks like he's about to go in a UFC match of some sort.
Yeah, he looks pissed off. Hey, Andy, you just won the pot, buddy.
Were you calling start or think about
This regional championship is just one of 4 10K events that lead to the Circuit Promised Land. 100 players will qualify, 9 of whom were at this final table. The winner of the national championship wins a World Series gold bracelet and a share of the $1 million prize pool. $1 million events, always attracting the best and the brightest that poker has to offer. 5-6 suited for Frankenberger.
Looks like he wants to play it. He might be playing the rush.
Yeah, chip on top of his cards mean they're not hitting the muck anytime soon. Raised to $35,000.
I'm all in.
All in.
Ace-8 suited from Jason Burt moves all in for 224 total. And 2 jacks for Chris Klodnicki, who makes the easy call on the button.
Based on the action before him, this is a clear call with 2 jacks.
Chris Bell wakes up with 2 queens.
Wow.
Shouldn't be a tough decision.
It's not as clear-cut as you would think. The only person he really has to worry about is Klodnicki, because he has all the chips.
Any chance Klodnicki smooth call him with kings or aces on the button?
I don't think so. I think in this particular spot he would re-raise.
224?
I mean, he could, but it's unlikely.
54, 5, 6. I got 619. I'm all in.
619, you're all in?
I think that's
all in for 619.
Chris Bell's going to take his chances, moving all in for his 619,000. Klodnicki does not like his spot.
He's in a tough spot. Bell could either have ace-king, kings, aces.
Maybe queens.
All right.
Cool.
I'm folding.
You said it right? Oh, I thought you said it right.
All right, that's probably the best result for me. Probably the best result.
Klodnicki saying he thought he had queens, feeling great about having laid down 2 jacks. Not feeling quite as great is Jason Burt, who's in rough shape on the 6-6-7 board, but picks up a little life on the turn with the 4. Neither player with the spade. Jason needs an ace or a 5, cannot hit it, and Chris Bell is going to pick up a huge pot, sending Jason Burt home early in this evening's action.
Burt ran a little bad at the final table. He lost 4 all-ins, and you can't expect to win when you're unlucky.
On his way out, Jason taking a look back at the remaining 6, all of whom have moved up about $15,000 in payout. Jason Burt taking home over $50,000 for his work. The real money is the over $350,000 at the top there. Let's not forget, in addition to the accolade, you pick up the World Series of Poker Circuit ring,
which is always a nice bonus.
Yeah, you're a bling kind of guy.
Minimal bling.
Minimal bling. Subtle bling.
Subtle bling.
Ace-8 off for Pandya. And he just lays it down in the cutoff.
This is a surprising fold. He's in the cutoff. He's only got to get through the button and the blinds with short stacks behind him. I would have come in for a raise.
Andy Frankenberger in the small blind with ace-deuce suited. He's an intense character.
He's got the look. This is not the UFC, Frankenberger.
Well, it's the call look, not the raise look. And that's the good look. Ace-king.
Klodnicki's always going to be raising here. When Frankenberger limps in the small blind, it shows a lot of weakness. So a lot of players in the big blind in this situation would pump it up.
35,000 extra to call. And he puts it out there.
Frankenberger believes he has the best hand right now with ace high.
And those 3 cards spell trouble for Frankenberger.
Anytime in a heads-up pot when both opponents flop top pair, there's going to be some chips splashing.
Andy leading right out.
This is an interesting lead. He limp called pre-flop. If he checks, Klodnicki's always going to take a stab at it, I think.
Raise.
Klodnicki making it 150,000 min raise. Andy does have the wheel draw.
I don't think that he's going to be going anywhere. Except maybe home.
All in. All in.
Andy ships it. Klodnicki makes the quick call and over 760,000 in the middle. Andy's in trouble. King takes away the deuce out. Frankenberger now needs to hit the 3 to make a wheel. Otherwise, it's adios. 9 of clubs means a 6th place finish for Andy.
Perhaps he's thinking he could have played a little stronger in the beginning. He played a little conservative early on, and it didn't help his chances.
But his stack is helping Chris Klodnicki, who is the defending champion in this event. Right now, he's threatening to do it again with just 5 players left.
You look great. You look great. You look great.
How do I look?
Bad poker face? Doesn't matter when you play online at partypoker.com. It's fun, it's easy, it's the world's largest poker room.
Best of hours. Best of hours.
Welcome back to Harrah's Atlantic City, where we caught up with Andy Frankenberger, our 6th place finisher.
I told myself going into today I would not play a big pot against Chris Klodnicki out of position, but with my flush draw, pre-flop, and then the ace hit, and I had a straight draw, he could be playing any 2 cards. As I replay in my head, I don't think I can't see myself getting away from it.
Apparently no regrets for Andy Frankenberger. It's always a nice way to bow out.
He's happy with the way he played his hand. He'll sleep fine tonight.
45,000.
Meanwhile, Micah Raskin, who's also doing fine with 2 queens, has made it 45,000, and Keaton Pandya is moving all in for 262 total right behind him.
With the blinds at 8 and 16,000, given that Pandya has 262,000, I think this is the correct play.
Have count. Pull it in.
Raskin asking for the chips to be pulled in. There's no chance he's mucking 2 queens.
I think it's as close to 0% as possible. This would fall under the slightly slow rollish category.
Yeah.
Third by 1.
I call.
There's the call. Keaton looks at 2 queens. Has the eye roll, too.
The very unhappy eye roll.
Queen.
5, yeah.
Here comes the flop. 2 8s and 2 clubs. Nut flush draw for Pandya. Plenty of outs right now, and even more on the turn. He picks up an open-ender.
There's a lot of outs.
17 to be exact. Deuce of clubs on the river, and Pandya stays alive. The family's fired up.
Papa is stoked.
5, John.
It's actually amazing Pandya had enough in his tank just to get this far.
I was actually ready, all set to play the 10K. I was driving down and I ran out of gas. I knew the cutoff was about 5 p.m. I reached the tournament area around 5:20ish. Supposedly they had some delay in the tournament start time. It was delayed by half an hour, so that was the reason I kind of snuck into this one, and I guess I was meant to be. Here I am on the final table.
You can bet that guy is not sweating the cost of a gallon of gas at this point. Poised to make plenty of cash, regardless of his finish, which is looking that much better after the double up. 9-7 suited here. Pink chips now in play, each worth 10,000.
Pandya loves the suited connectors. The blinds have gone up to 10 and 20,000.
Ante's also up to 3,000, but Pandya keeping the raise at 45,000.
It's a small raise, just a little over 2x.
Speaking of small, how about a couple of 3s for Klodnicki?
Klodnicki should play this hand. He's on the button. He has superior position. What he doesn't want to do is 3-bet and get 4-bet to not be able to see the flop.
Chris flats. Micah Raskin will take a ride for an extra quarter. Oh boy.
This is big trouble for Raskin. There's no situation where he's going to be able to get away from it, unless it's checked and there's another heart on the turn.
8 high flush for Micah, 9 high flush for Keaton. Micah leads right out for 160.
I like this. You don't put him on a flush when he leads out.
Pot size bet.
Pandya trying to think what he can do to get all the money in the pot.
Smooth calling would be risky.
He doesn't want to smooth call and have another heart peel on the turn.
That's right. But that's exactly what he does for 160.
If he can dodge a heart on the turn, he's guaranteed to get the rest of Raskin's chips on the turn.
To be fair, he was probably guaranteed to get them anyway, and now the 4th heart is probably going to freeze some of this action. Micah checks.
The action will slow down with this card.
Caton checks behind. River pairs the board.
Raskin doesn't realize how lucky that king of hearts was for him on the turn.
Checks a second time. Now what do you do with the 9 high flush?
You could check it down. You could value bet it. Against Raskin, you might want to check because he's capable of doing a check raise there.
Caton does end up checking in position and rolling over the flush. That look on his face says it all. Just a few hands ago, Caton was facing elimination, and now he's wondering how he missed out on all those chips.
The most amateur thing I see quite often is people making the wrong raise, or betting too much or too little.
That's one of the biggest amateur mistakes, is not being able to get away from an overpair when the money's deep.
Just not understanding how deep the chip stacks are. When you're playing 25-50 and somebody goes broke, I mean, it really should be a real cold deck. It shouldn't be, you know, second nut flush against top nut flush. I mean, and that happens with amateurs a lot.
Couple of professionals at the top of the leaderboard right now, with Raskin in third. Let's talk about Pandya's play just before the break, however. Got to be some regret revolving around not having shipped it in on the flop.
Looking back, I'm sure he regrets just flat calling the flop and perhaps not value betting the river.
Can't be too upset with the 9 high flush when the king, jack, and 10 of hearts are on the board.
There's only 2 hearts that can beat you. Sometimes you have to get value for your hand.
I don't think I'm getting 2-1 though.
Micah Raskin lays down king 5.
2-1 with the hand.
Back to Pandya.
I assume you're folding.
He lays down the 4-5, and Todd Terry's going to ship 126 in there with queen 3 suited on the button.
He's hoping that no one calls and he can win the antes and the blinds.
He can keep hoping because Chris Klodnicki with ace-8 off is just min re-raised. That gets the big blind out.
Very live.
So we'll scale it back to 126 total to cover Todd Terry. And there's 287 in this pot. We've seen Todd Terry do the shoulder bag move before.
How's it worked out for him?
He flopped a set against an overpair.
That's not too good.
But this time he's up against top 2 with queen 3. It is not looking good. And on the turn, he's drawing dead. That means Todd Terry is your 5th place finisher.
Good luck.
Ceremonious adios.
Great luck. You play good every time I play with you, man. Good job.
And of course, there's the small matter of 87,000 and change, which is topped off with some nice words from Chris Bell. Chris Klodnicki claiming his 2nd straight knockout. Not much to this one. Todd Terry hung on as long as he could with the short stack, but goes out in 5th. The 2 Chris's squarely at the top of the leaderboard, the only 2 millionaires in chips. Caton and Micah, however, hanging around.
Chip in a chair.
More than one chip, that's for sure. Caton Pandya, 9-7 off, hits the muck. 7 deuce suited for Klodnicki. Not even he is that adventurous. 2 hooks for Chris Bell.
In the small blind. No one ever gives you enough credit in the small blind.
Can't blame him either. Looks so much like a steal. Chris makes it 56,000. Mike has got ace-9.
I smell trouble for Raskin.
There's a Helmuthian vibe about Raskin right now. The Oakleys, the hands in front of the mouth.
Only thing is missing, the massive ego.
Let's not forget the 11 World Series bracelets.
He does have 11 bracelets. How he got them, I don't know.
Micah looks like he's going to re-raise. 160 total.
I like this 3-bet. He has an ace in his hand. There's a very good chance that Bell is out there stealing.
Reality is, however, that Bell's got 2 jacks, but he's only going to call 104 more.
This call is questionable. He's got jacks out of position against a very aggressive player. How is he going to play once an overcard or 2 come on the flop?
We'll find out in a second. Dealer rips 3 off the top of the stub and spreads them out. 10-9 queen, all hearts. Open-ended straight flush draw for Chris Bell. Pair of 9s for Micah.
The check is pretty standard by Bell. Raskin re-raised pre-flop, and he expects Raskin to follow through on the flop with a continuation bet.
That's exactly what Micah does, to the tune of $200,000. Now what?
It's a little tricky after this flop. He does have a pair of jacks. He also has a straight draw along with the flush draw. I don't think he wants to slow play this hand. I think he's looking to just ship it right here.
Come on.
And that's exactly what he does. He has Micah Raskin covered. It's going to take the rest of Micah's chips to call. Should be a standard fold for most players, but you get the feeling with Micah, you kind of got to hold your breath.
Guy keeps it exciting.
I fold.
Not this time.
Show.
Nice hands.
I'll show one.
Bet it's CSRs. I bet it's CSRs.
Wow.
What was it?
Jack of hearts.
Jack of hearts. Okay. It's like ace hearts.
Chris Bell flashes the Jack of Hearts to the table, but the other one, that'll remain a mystery.
Life is all about challenges and how we face them, the plays we make, the risks we take. That's why I love poker. It's where I get my buzz. And compared to that, this is just a walk in the park. With more free-to-enter tournaments than any other site, challenge yourself at PokerStars.com and find the Poker Star in you.
Harrah's Atlantic City is an ideal destination to relax and take your mind off of everyday life. Whether it's a quiet night in one of the newly renovated suites or a day at the pool, you'll leave Atlantic City refreshed and invigorated. What started out as a slow East Regional Championship has transformed quickly. Seth Fisher busted in 9th place, and Nick Mitchell quickly followed him in 8th when he got a little too creative with Ace-Jack. Jason Burt ran bad, then got it in as an underdog and said goodbye in 7th. Andy Frankenberger's patience got him all the way to 6th place, but that's where his final table run came to an end. Todd Terry worked a short stack well, but he got no help with Queen 3 against Chris Klodnicki. And now here we are, four-handed for the championship. From everything we've seen, it would be surprising if the two Chris's didn't end up heads up. But Caton Pandia's giving him hell. Not this hand with 3-4 offsuit. 2 6s for Klodnicki on the button. No question what he's doing. Raised to 45,000. Chris Bell lays down in the small, and Raskin ships it for 360 total with King 10 off. Klodnicki makes the quick call.
I like the ship. There's a lot of hands that Klodnicki can't call with, and the blinds are really high.
So you make quick calls.
That was a good call.
Here's the flop. Ace high, 2 6s holding on. Raskin looking for a king or a 10 for a diamonds. Not it. And Micah's tournament life is down to hitting one of 6 cards. That's not one of them. Micah Raskin's run comes to an end in 4th place. He was the one-time chip leader at this final table.
He played a little too spewy at times.
Yeah, that volatile style will take you from riches to rags and back again, but this time it's a 4th place exit. Good for a little over 117 grand. Always help yourself to some amp on the way out, Micah.
7. Accidentally used a 2 instead of 1.
So we kick off three-handed action with the blinds at 10 and 20,000. No small blind in this hand. That's where Raskin would have been. So one big blind out there, which Klodnicki will promptly attack with A7. Caton Pandia with Queen 9 suited.
Call.
We know he's not folding that hand.
Calls for the extra quarter. Value priced pot of 99,000. King high flop.
Both players missed the flop entirely. Klodnicki still in the lead with the ace high.
Pandya checks. Klodnicki checks. No continuation bet. 5 of diamonds on the turn. Gives Klodnicki an open-ended straight draw. Pandya checks again.
If he checked the flop and it got checked to him again on the turn, I'm not sure why he would bet here.
Chris sticks 50,000 out there.
Betting the turn here doesn't make much sense to me. Once he checks the flop, now he picks up a draw on the turn, and he could possibly have the best hand with the ace high. I'm probably not going to open myself up to a possible check raise.
And that's exactly what Klodnicki has done. Look at Pandya playing like a pro. Sensing the weakness, sticking an extra 110 out there.
Klodnicki's going to be forced to call here. He has position, he has a straight draw, he also has an ace in his hand.
Chris doing the math. 110 for a shot at 309 and maybe more. Makes the call.
Pandya has taken control of this pot. If Klodnicki blanks off on the river and Pandya takes another stab at it, what is Klodnicki going to do?
Definitely not blanking off is Klodnicki. Ace of hearts on the river, giving him top pair. Caton bets 175.
This feels like a pretty easy call. The heart comes and Pandya isn't even remotely scared. He just fires right out. And usually when a scary card comes and you have a made hand, you know, you tend to get a little bit scared. And he's trying to show that he's not scared at all.
Representing strength.
That's all.
Chris calls.
I'm really curious to see what would have happened had an ace not rolled off on the river. Pandya is always following through. What is Klodnicki going to do when he misses?
Fact is, he didn't miss, made the call, and is now riding a huge wave of confidence to go with that impressive chip lead. We'll return to Harrah's Atlantic City with more of the WSOP Circuit East Regional in a moment. Coverage of the final table of the World Series of Poker East Regional Championship continues from Harrah's Atlantic City. 3 players left, all chasing the $358,000 first place prize. Blinds are up to 12 and 24,000 with a 3K ante. Chris Bell on the button with a suited ace. Standard and customary is a raise, and it's to 56,000. King Jack for Caton Pandya.
Short-handed, these are both pretty good hands.
Caton ships it all in for 366,000.
I like Caton's style. He's not afraid to put his chips in the middle. He's got a lot of heart.
Yeah, very courageous young man. Now it's 310,000 more for Chris Bell to call.
It is short-handed. He does have the ace in his hand. It's a tough call, but in the end, sometimes you have to put your money in the middle.
That's exactly what Chris is doing, and Caton appears to know his King Jack is unlikely to be good. Indeed, he's behind. A little lucky shake weight there from Pandya.
Did you have a king or jack?
You had a king and jack?
Huh?
I had A6.
Flop comes out king high. Pandya looking good to stay alive. Now Klodnicki has told the table that he laid down the A6, so Bell knows he's only got 2 outs.
Very disheartening situation for Bell.
Pandya looking good for a huge double up. And that ices it. Caton getting plenty of support as he has all final table long from his family. Chris Bell, meanwhile, losing the race. But as we found out, life is pretty good for the North Carolina native.
We're from a small town. We're a proud community. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are, proud of me. There was a point to where I started playing more poker, making more money playing poker than I was selling real estate. And I was actually doing really well playing poker. But she decided, she got it in her head that maybe she needed to go and get Gamblers Anonymous. So I didn't go. I was playing poker like she was. She said, well, when I got there, everybody was going around saying their name and what they did. So I stood up and told them. They said, well, you know, what does your husband do? And she said, well, you know, he plays poker. The lady said, so, oh, I bet he's taking the credit card and maxed the credit cards out. Joanna said, well, no, actually, we don't even have any credit card debt right now. And she mean, what about your financial situation? And Joanna said, well, actually, we're better off financially than we've ever been. And the lady said, well, you can sit down. And my parents, when I first started playing, I remember being at a family reunion, my mom saying, well, what am I supposed to tell people you do for a living? And now, anytime it looks like I'm going to be on TV, calling all their friends, I mean, they're telling everybody. So it went from, you know, what am I supposed to do to tell me you do for a living to they want to tell the whole world.
Chris Bell, really one of the class acts in poker. Hard to find anybody who'll say anything bad about him.
Don't know him well personally. From what I hear, he's a great guy, and he's friends with Gavin Smith, who I love and adore.
Love and adore.
Love and adore.
That's strong. Almost as strong as raising to 50,000 with 10-9 offsuit on the button. Chris Bell calls with 7-8 suited. Keaton Pandya looks at napkins, returns to sender, and the two Chris's will do battle heads up. 8 high flop.
I don't like the call pre-flop by Bell. I never want to put myself in that situation with 8 high out of position. In this particular case, he happened to flop top pair.
Both players check the flop. 4 hits the turn.
Once Klodnicki checks the flop, Bell is almost near certain that his top pair 8s is the best hand.
And his bet of 80,000 seems to reflect that awareness.
Klodnicki should be done with the hand. He has 10 high. He checked the flop, which basically means he's giving it up.
Au contraire, my good friend. Plenty of pink being shoveled toward the pot. 190,000 of it to be exact.
The only thing he's repping here is ace deuce, perhaps maybe a 6-7. I don't like this play. There's not many hands he could have here.
Jason, I've got 566 more. I'm all in.
That was a sexy all-in.
Yeah, whispered into the dealer's ear, no less.
And Bell sees right through Klodnicki. He knew his 8 was good, and he had no fear.
Klodnicki definitely took a suspect line. Chris Bell, even if he was up against the ace-deuce, the one hand that he would have had to worry about, he wasn't going to be drawn dead if Klodnicki called.
He did pick up the gutter on the turn.
Klodnicki taking a small hit there with the mistimed bluff, but he doesn't have much to worry about. Bell and Pandya under $1 million, while Klodnicki sits at over 2.5. Blind still at 12 and 24,000. 2 10s for Keaton. Not a matter of if, but rather how much, and it's 55,000. 2 deuces for Klodnicki. Coming off that pot he just lost.
You always have to take into consideration what the other players think of you at the table.
Klodnicki makes it 175, and there's the real pocket pair. It belongs to Chris Bell, 2 queens.
This is amazing. 3-handed, 3 pocket pairs.
For Chris Bell.
I'm all in.
It's going to be an all-in to 966,000.
This puts Pandya in a tough spot. He has a pair of 10s. It's 3-handed. He got raised and re-raised, and his whole tournament life is at risk here.
Best case scenario, he's up against 2 overcards in one of the 2 spots, if not beat.
Chris Bell could very easily have ace-king, possibly ace-queen suited. It's going to be hard to fold 2 10s.
Pandya calls off the remainder of his stack. Should be a pretty easy fold for Klodnicki, which he makes.
Keep getting set up here. Queen.
And here's the bad news for Keaton, who really has played his heart out to this point.
Nice, Chris.
Gonna need some luck to avoid the exit.
Should have just called off anyway. I better gonna hit.
9 high flop, not gonna be doing him any favors. The bell tolls for Keaton Pandya. He needs a 10 or a couple of runners. Strike 2. One last swing of the bat. Strike 3. Keaton Pandya is out in 3rd place. And the Pandya Express is going to take his $160,000 to go. With Micah Raskin and Keaton Pandya out of the way, the two most established pros at this final table get to go one-on-one for the ring and the cash. Chris Bell trails and has about 75 big blinds, while Klodnicki will start heads up with the chip lead. Both players pretty deep stacked. Who do you like?
It's going to be any man's game. Obviously, I'm going to go with the guy that has more chips, as I do think they're both very good players.
Klodnicki starts on the button with a less than desirable 9-deuce suited, but he'll keep the pressure on, raising to 50,000. And Bell's going to start heads up with 2 jacks.
Pretty good hand to start with. You always want to set the tone when you get heads up. You want to let your opponent know that you're going to be raising and gambling and taking control a lot. And that is what Klodnicki is trying to do with the 9-deuce.
Bell saying he won't be pushed around. Little does Klodnicki know that statement is being made with a real hand. Klodnicki doesn't want to set a precedent for getting pushed around either.
No, but at the same time, he does have the 9-deuce, and it's okay to fold once in a while.
375 total.
Try telling that to Chris. He's raising to 375 total.
2 1/4 more. All right.
225 more for Chris Bell.
Klodnicki trying to show Bell that he will not be pushed around, trying to take control of this heads-up match.
Bell could easily ship.
And I think he will. He does have a pair of jacks heads up.
If you're up against queens, kings, or aces, so be it.
All in.
Chris moves all in. Klodnicki looks suspicious, but he lets go of the 9-deuce easily at this point. And Chris Bell picks up a pretty healthy pot to kick things off. One that'll give him the chip lead. Not Chris Klodnicki's finest moment. Let's take a look now at our Amp Energy hand of the day. Keaton Pandya's tournament life was on the line, and he trailed Chris Bell. But a king on the flop and a couple of bricks gave him hope at winning the title. In the end, though, it was Bell who would have the last laugh after Pandya ran his pocket tens into Bell's pocket queens. And that's when Keaton's surprising run came to an end. Pretty hard to give the amp hand of the day to anyone else. Pandya was into it.
He was. He had heart. He had follow through. I give him credit.
He had 2 tens at the wrong time is what he had.
Raise 55. 65.
Raised by Chris Bell to 65,000. Both players with an ace.
If you have an ace heads up, you probably have the best hand to start.
Can't say it often enough. It does ring true. Ace high flop. This could be trouble. Klodnicki checks.
Klodnicki in big trouble here. He's got top pair in a heads up situation. He's going to lose some chips.
Bell betting 85,000.
I like this bet by Bell a lot. If he had nothing going into the flop, he would have stabbed at the flop just the same. So he might as well go for it when he has top pair.
Really helping to disguise the strength of his hand by betting.
Definitely.
Ironically enough, action on Klodnicki.
Klodnicki, no reason to check raise. He's got a pair of aces. His opponent has bet into him. I would just call.
He disagrees, makes it 230,000.
I wouldn't want to open the door here with a pair of aces 5 kicker. If my opponent is bluffing, I want to keep him on the hook.
Chris Bell just calls.
I like this call. He has position. He has top pair. His kicker is average. He's got a 9 kicker. What he doesn't want to do is build this pot to be too big. He wants to keep it small. He's got position.
Jack pairs on the turn, giving Klodnicki the nut flush draw. Almost 600,000 in the middle. Klodnicki checks.
Bell could easily have a jack in his hand. He did call a check raise on the flop. Perhaps he did it with second pair. Maybe he has an ace.
Bell checks behind Klodnicki, and this is going to be a chop pot at a showdown. third jack on the end takes the kicker issue out of the equation.
780,000.
I call.
Call.
Bet of 780,000 and a quick call by Bell.
I think Bell makes a small mistake in this pot. The way the hand plays down, Klodnicki can't have a jack in his hand. So Bell, not to raise Klodnicki all in on the river, takes away the free roll chance that Klodnicki might fold the ace.
Might is right, but in all likelihood, he would have called. We'll never know. Plenty of high-level poker still to come.
Hello, Mr. Cunningham. Alan, it's a big pot out there, buddy. I'm all in. Don't be scared.
I call.
Only a donkey would make that call. We play at fulltiltpoker.com.
Chris Bell with a slight chip lead. Blind still at 12 and 24,000. Ante's at 3K. Another ace, this time for Klodnicki on the button. He raises to 60,000.
60.
And again, Bell with a better ace. The best ace, in fact.
200.
It's
200.
quite brutal to be in a heads-up situation and have the worst ace twice.
Bell is 3-bet to 200,000. 140 more for Klodnicki to call.
Bell playing some strong poker.
He's raised pretty much every chance he's had. It's got to be piquing Chris Klodnicki's suspicions. He just lays it down.
That's a very good laydown. He must have some sort of tell on Bell. It's pretty hard to fold an ace on the button heads up.
For 140 more after you have 60 invested.
Bell did put in a pretty big 3-bet. Could have been a sign.
Button now on Chris Bell. Had a pretty tough go of things in 08 and 09. He almost quit poker, but then in 2010 he picked up a World Series of Poker bracelet, which he gave to his dad. Dad wears it several times a week. Pocket threes now for Chris Bell on the button. He makes it 75,000 to go. And 2 overcards for Klodnicki.
Hard to have 2 undercards for Klodnicki.
But apparently not hard to 3-bet with 6 high. He makes it 225. $150 more for Chris Bell to call.
I like the 3-bet by Klodnicki. In heads-up situations, you really have to get out there and mix it up.
Don't want to be too passive. Can't be afraid to re-raise light. Bell in the tank.
Call.
He makes the call. Pot up to 456. Here comes the flop. Trouble.
Klodnicki flops top pair with an open-ended straight draw. He really can't ask for better after 3-betting with the 6 high. Bell flops bottom set.
$260.
260.
260 is the lead by Klodnicki. Any sense in Chris Bell's slow playing?
I don't think he's going to slow play it. I think raising is the correct play. He doesn't want to call and have a scary card come on the turn. If Klodnicki happens to have an overpair, a deuce 4 or 7 can really slow down the action.
On the flip side, Chris Bell would hate to raise here and lose his man.
I'm all in.
All in.
Bell ships it.
Call.
Klodnicki with a pretty casual call. And this is for his tournament.
I think it's a call. He has top pair with the straight draw. There's a lot of money in the pot.
Got to be willing to gamble.
Bell could have had ace-5. I'm surprised that he moved all in with the pocket threes. I would have made a raise, leaving the door open for Klodnicki to possibly come over the top, thinking he could get Bell off a hand.
Fortunately for Bell, Klodnicki had enough to call. He breaks the turn And now he's down to a deuce or a 7 to take a nearly insurmountable chip lead and keep his title defense hopes alive. No dice. Chris Bell is your WSOP Circuit East Regional Champion.
Good game, Chris. I run a lot better than you, heads up, buddy. When you see me, if they show a lot of our hands, heads up you.
Humble in victory is Chris Bell, whose flopped set holds up as he ends Chris Klodnicki's bid to go back-to-back in AC. A big score for Bell as he takes home over $358,000 and the World Series of Poker Circuit ring. It's been a long road, but Bell is back on top.
The hand where they got raised and he re-raised and I moved all in and won that pot. I mean, I really needed that hand. I was, I only had $600,000, which was enough, but it wasn't a lot. I mean, he had me 3-1 at a time.
Chris Bell's Cinderella story reached its climax tonight as he battled through a tough final table to win nearly $400,000 and the World Series of Poker Circuit ring. One of the classiest players on the tour used a few timely bluffs and a couple of big pairs to score the victory. Chris Bell, World Series of Poker East Regional Champion. For Antonio Esfandiari, I'm Ali Nejad saying so long from Atlantic City.